Well, hello everybody, and good morning from here. This is the 16th day of June 2014, and we are working our way through the petal number 6, the synthesis for petal number 6. And we have reached that point where we are dealing with the monadic stage of unfoldment, which we might associate with this petal. And there is a name which seems to be a perfect fit. It's called tertiary points of secondary fire. And I have dealt with this a bit earlier, but we can understand that the fire that is found within the second tier of petals is sponsored in a way by solar fire. That is the secondary fire. Perhaps the tertiary fire is the fire by friction, and the primary fire might be considered electric fire, or we could reverse the 1 and the 3 as is often done, but definitely secondary fire pertains to the middle tier of petals. And tertiary points tells us something about the fact that this is the third petal in the second tier. So if we were to, let's say, go to page 100 and 1000, excuse me, get that all cleared out there. Say 175 here. If we were to go, let us say, to Cosmic Fire, page 1081, we will see the way these points have progressed, and they do seem to be in order in terms of the stage of evolution. The monadic points that are expressing perhaps through the fifth petal, or those of whatever nature that have the fifth petal as their point of focus, can be called the points of fiery excellence. This fits well with Leo. The tertiary points of secondary fire, I think, fits well with the Virgo petal. And it's interesting that Virgo is also associated with the third ray, not in our solar system, but previously, as well as with the second. So it seems an appropriate place to talk about that which is secondary and that which is tertiary. More about the degree of unfoldment of these monads is not given. As you see below, the types of monads that exist are here, and these this is more in terms of their origin and not their stage of development through the egoic lotus. But here above are definitely the stages of development, whatever the origin of the monads might be. And we had a few jokes, of course, about about heavy metal and the heavy rhythm and so forth from some of our members at the time. All right, number 19. The groups of souls most associated with this petal. Well, we could say from Esoteric Psychology 2, right around page 202 or so. Well, let me go there. Group number 7, the probationary disciples. This will be Esoteric Psychology 2, and right around page, let's say, 204 or so, maybe 205. Group number 7. Those souls whose sense of awareness on the physical plane is now of such an order that they can pass on to the probationary path. They are the mystics conscious of duality, torn between the pairs of opposites, but who are as yet unable to rest until they are polarized in the soul. They are the sensitive, struggling people who long for release from failure and from existence in the world today. That would pretty well cover the manner in which Pisces influences the processes of this sixth petal. Their mind natures are alive and active, but they cannot yet control them as they should, though under Virgo I think there is something being learned in that way, and the higher illumination remains as yet a joyous hope and final possibility. Well, I think, yes, group number 7 of these groups of souls, or the human groups as we have called them, seems appropriate for this petal. Right before it, when we're dealing with group number 6, when we're talking about writers, artists, thinkers in various fields of knowledge and aspiration, politicians, religious leaders, they're more in the rank of society, let us say, and they are not so much focused on release into the realm of the soul, and so are more appropriate for the work of the fifth petal. Workers, artisans, all those who, though in the front rank, yet take ideas and propositions and work with them for the ultimate benefit of the human family. They are the world aspirants and those who are beginning to get the ideal of service into their consciousness. I suppose by the time we reach the 7th group, the ideal of service is very much established, even if there is still some selfishness remaining. Okay, so I think I always need one of my brackets here. Right, so they are creative. Let's see, at group number 8, is that possible? In the middle of the later phase of petal number 7. Let's see. So the groups of souls most associated here, human group 7 and group number 8, in middle to later phase of petal 7. Practical mystics, true disciples, accepted disciples. Well, I think that may be taking it a bit too far, in my view. I think so, because when we look at the next phase, human group number 8, souls whose intelligence and love nature is becoming so awakened and integrated that they can begin to tread the path of discipleship. They are the practical mystics or occultists of the modern times. Well, I think maybe as we are getting more towards the end of petal number 6, and which would mean we're working already in petal number 7, and even in petal number 8, we can talk about the disciples of the world, but certainly not yet the initiates. So group number 7 may be probationary disciples. Group number 8, the disciples of the world. Okay, so disciples. Practical mystics, true disciples, but not yet accepted disciples. Okay. Not yet accepted. Let's see, accepted disciples. How did I do that? ACDS, accepted disciples. Okay. Okay, we can say that they are still creative and serving constructive members of humanity. So what we just read about group 6, those in the front rank, still applies. Mercury and mentality and refining of the intelligence are here, and they are committed to a reasonable amount of service, I would say. So human group 6 is still active, and we are working on the ideal of service. However, With group 7, the mystic, sensitive, struggling, longing for soul and illumination, cannot quite control the mind. In this petal, there is some learning how to control the mind. And, we do find in Virgo and Pisces quite a monastic leaning, where one isolates oneself from the world and attempts to reach divinity. One is separating oneself from the world and later will return. There is here the yearning for the kingdom of God via Pisces. So the way that human group 7 is described makes an overlap between petal 6 and petal 7 a possibility. I think so. We definitely have true discipleship once we are working in a very focal way in petal 7. We can have the religious idealistic attitude found in petal 6. There's quite a bit of the 6th ray. We talked about the 6th ray in relation to both Pisces and Virgo, two signs which are prominent there. So in this case, we are applying the disciplines to shape ourselves up for what is lying ahead. We are undergoing the Plutonian eliminations in Pisces and the Vulcanian fashioning in Virgo. And Virgo also is very choosy, very selective, and will help us remove from our nature what is not needed. So this is still the middle tier. This is a tier related to the astral plane and to the emotional vehicle, and thus the mystic can still be found here. They do make good mystics, the Virgo and Pisces. Is every mystic a first-degree initiate? And I think we would have to say not yet, not necessarily. Mysticism spans a very long developmental period, and there are high mystics who were to emerge during the Piscean age. Meister Eckhart, John of the Cross, Saint Teresa. There are a number of them. Jan van Ruysbroek, not sure how we pronounce that. I suppose it's Flemish or Dutch. And a number of others, Thomas à Kempis and so forth. There are the high ones of that nature, and those whose longing is just beginning. There's also Hildegard von Bingen with those beautiful Gregorian music, a high soul. So we have experienced mystics and those who are just beginning. And some mystics do have an excellent mind. Meister Eckhart did. Maybe, well, if he had been living in an age when occultism was more emergent, we might have called him, I think, an occultist. Must we necessarily have mental focus to take the first degree? Well, there is elevation towards the throat center. And someone put the idea forward here that some very intelligent people are really idiots. I guess it's a joke from one of our number that knows mysticism very well. I think so much depends upon the rays as to whether the first degree will involve a lot of mind or not. Mystics do proceed along the heart line, and they become what is eventually called the masters of compassion, lords of compassion. Let's say, rather than masters of the wisdom, maybe we should call this lords of compassion. So there's a great deal of intensity of feeling concerning the presence of God and the search for numinosity, for that which is internally bright and radiant in a spiritual sense. So so much depends upon the numbers. and the type of planet on which this emergence is occurring. Some along the mystical line, I think, who become blissful dancing points of fanatical devotion will sustain their mysticism. Maybe if they have a high sixth ray, or a sixth ray monad, let us say. Some of the softer line monads, like Master Jesus or Master Serapis, will be making their way to Sirius, we are told. And here we have some pages suggested here. Before, and an important reference here from Esoteric Astrology, page 307 and 308. Before individual man can achieve initiation, and I think he's probably talking about the third, he must be fully self-conscious, mystically developed and occultly, mystically oriented and occultly developed. It sounds like we're talking about the three phases of the sun, or the three synthesizing planets. He must be aware of himself as he essentially is, a soul in form, which is itself developed and unfolded through soul activity. And I suppose this takes in the first phase of the sun and the Saturnian aspect. He must be a developed mystic, that is, that takes in the Neptunian aspect, capable of pure vision, motivated by spiritual intent, and able to perceive the uses of inherent sensitivity. That's very Neptunian, and it suggests also the Ajna center. He must also be a trained occultist, mentally polarized and profoundly aware of the realities, forces, and energies of existence, and therefore free from the, shall we say, at least ordinary glamours and illusions, because we're not going to be free of all of them at this stage, which color the reactions and life of the average man. He is then governed by the physical sun, motivated by the energies pouring through the heart of the sun via Neptune, and bringing about at-one-ment through the forces which are reaching him via Uranus. They may be Uranian forces, or they may be forces from beyond that are allied with what we would call the monad, or the central spiritual sun. And notice the at-one-ment is coming in under Uranus. It's an occult act. I think that's quite interesting. The longing to link the polarities is coming in under Neptune. Anyway, this kind of mystical longing and the beginning of real mental development can occur in this sixth petal, which is at least partially associated with Virgo and its strong Mercurian mentality. One of our numbers said that this is a kind of yearning without yet having the realization of oneness, or the soul, or the higher life, and I think that is certainly possible. Some people were talking about the Diksha movement, where some sort of bliss is entering. It's from India, and it's come to the West, but the individual thinks that these are not the real initiates. And to be an initiate of the first degree is not a low thing. And the same individual, monastic lives may occur before the first initiation. Very, very definitely so. There is a searching within and a longing for peace in the heart. And people often believe that they are at the end when they're just arriving at the beginning. So after the first degree, there is the thought here that it will take a man more out into society. I think it's not necessarily the case. I think there are those of the first degree, perhaps, who are still cultivating themselves. This individual thinks that monkhood fits with the probationary path, and that the monk is at the stage of purification, but I would not think this is exclusively the case. There are necessarily very high monks who have passed even the fourth degree. Such a one was Master D.K. himself, and Dalai Lama tells us that he is simply a monk. This is interesting. Just a simple monk. Okay, so moving on to the next item. We're talking about the stage of adaptation most associated with this petal, and it looks like stage of adaptation number 6 should be considered. Let's look at that. Make this a little bigger. And let's see, what has stage of adaptation number 5 given us? The average really good man. Okay, well, we are beyond that. We are beyond that at this point, I believe. Although there may be some elements there. I refer to the motivated love which recognizes the rights of others and consciously strives to adapt itself to those recognized rights while tenaciously holding on to the rights of personality. I think that in the 6th petal we realize that it is not right to tenaciously hold on to the rights of personality. We are actually trying to relinquish those rights to a degree, but we're not quite successful. Let's see what DK says. It never hurts to remind ourselves of these human group stages and the stages of adaptation, because they really give a clear idea of the stages through which the human being must pass. So stage of adaptation number 6, let's check here for a second, right. The work of adaptation is carried on by the aspirants of the world, yes, who are theoretically convinced of their group relation. Remember what was said about the attempt to serve the group in this particular petal. Theoretically convinced of their group relation, of its paramount importance, and of the need of every personality to develop its powers to the fullest capacity in order to bring real value to the group and to serve adequately the group need. In true esotericism, there is no such motive as killing the personality. This is a Virgo fault. We recognize it happened in the Virgo labor of Hercules, or of disciplining it to such an extent that it becomes a poor dead thing. The true motive is to train the threefold lower nature. And this, of course, correlates very well with the idea of Virgo, doesn't it? Train the threefold lower nature, the integrated personality, to the highest demonstration of its powers, latent or developing, in order that those powers may be brought to the helping of the group need. And the personality of the aspirant may be integrated into the group. Thereby, the group life is enriched, the group potency is increased, and the group consciousness is enhanced. And I think, when we were looking here, I'm going to bring in one more of these, and hopefully it will not freeze or do some untoward thing. We'll go to a treatise on cosmic fire, and around page, let's say, 541 or 2. It's right here. The petal of love, of sacrifice for the astral plane, unfoldment is brought about by the attitude of the man as he consciously endeavors to give up his own desires for the sake of the group. So we can see the correspondence here between the developments in petal number 6 and in stage of adaptation number 6. His motive is still a somewhat blind one, and still colored by a desire, the desire for a return of that which he gives and for love from those he seeks to serve. But he does, he does seek to serve. That is an important point. But it is of a much higher order than the blind sacrifice to which a man is driven by circumstances, as is the case in the earlier unfoldment. Here, it's more a conscious choice. All right, so I think that's an important one. an important reference to sight. Let's read a little further, because the discussion of stage of adaptation number 6 is pretty longer than some of the others. What is therefore to be seen going on in the life of the true aspirant today? His developing recognition of group responsibility can also be seen going on in groups and organizations and nations. So here we have the developing recognition of group responsibility. We're not quite there yet. There still is an expectation of return, but at least it is developing, and it continues to develop all the way through the sacrifice petals. Hence the many experiments going on now. A process is going forward whereby these groups, large or small, are being subjected to a house cleaning. It's so Virgoan, isn't it? To a house cleaning, to a discarding of the rubbish of old and worn-out ideas, and to a period of disciplining and training. The words couldn't be more suited, which must precede all real group life. In other words, one must be truly a probationary disciple before one can become a disciple and adhere to the standards of real group life. When this process is over, we shall have these groups approaching each other in a new and real spirit of cooperation, of religious fusion, and in an international attitude which will be new indeed. Right now we have competition, don't we? We have the vying for supremacy and dominance and so forth, and outright antagonism. Then they will have something of a surer and greater value to offer to the whole, after all of this purification has taken place. Within all these groups which are struggling towards this newer realization and integration, and which express what we might call the 6th stage of adaptation, are those who are already at the 7th stage. It sounds like we're starting to talk about the new group of world servers at the 7th stage. So we have some little summary words here which discuss this stage. The aspirant is here. He is disciplining. He's convinced of his group relation, even though he's not perfect in executing the requirements for true group relation. He is in training and is correcting his personality. You know, we call this the petal of correction. He's house cleaning. He's discarding rubbish and attempting in general to respond to the group need. And we can say in this petal there is increasingly the realization that there is something more important than I am. And we do this consciously. In petal 3, we proved that there was something more important than I am, but we were forced into it unconsciously. We were, should we say, we were driven to it. And here we choose. And I suppose that choice is going to continue on into petal number 7, where Libra seems to be so important. You know, we will find, and I think I've stated this before, that every sign of the zodiac can be applied, and every planet can be applied to the processes in every petal. Every petal will take a number of lives to unfold, and some of the early petals take a huge number of lives relatively to unfold. So the opportunity to be working in and under various astrological influences and ray influences is definitely there. Okay, let's look at the chakra that may be most involved in relation to this petal. Well, we have, maybe it should be chakras, really. We have the ajna, the heart, the head, the solar plexus. Let's just say that when one is focused, particularly working in this petal, one is not yet an initiate of the first degree. When the work continues, and one is working focally in petal number 7, and some degree of unfoldment is occurring here, one can be an initiate of the first degree, and one then is working very much, I think, in the 8th petal later when this sixth petal unfolds completely and one becomes an initiate of the second degree. Some of the head centers are awakening, as we would expect from petal 5. The soul or solar angel is involved, and the top of the head or crown and Leo. They all go together, those ideas. And that's in the unfoldment of petal number 5. And when petal number 5 is completely unfolded, there's work going on still in petal number 6, and 5 of the head centers with their, 4 and their synthesis, the alta major making 5, are involved at that first degree. So maybe the 6th center, whatever we may consider that to be, there is a center in the head for each one of the 7 chakras, not necessarily including the ajna and the crown center. Some of the lower chakras may be supervised by these 7 head centers. Or we do have kind of a contradiction with a lesser center in the head supervising a greater center like the 1,000-petaled lotus. So I think that has to be studied carefully. The 7 will centers in the head do control 7 lesser chakras. And from the time there is work being done, or a real unfoldment of the 5th petal, 5 of these head centers are active. When we go on to a greater, let's say, unfoldment of the 6th petal, then 6 of these head centers will be active, and when all of the petals are unfolded at the 3rd degree, then all 7 of these head centers will be active. I think that's how it looked. Let's see. Maybe I want to just check this carefully. This will be from a treatise on cosmic fire, right around page 170. Spiritual man to the 3rd initiation. Okay, yes. By the time we reach the 3rd initiation, all 7 head centers are going to be fully developed, and they will be partially developed as we are approaching them. It's not that the 7th head center has to wait precisely until the 2nd initiation is passed. I think there's some sort of phasing in that is going on. Anyway, page 170 is important in this respect. Okay, so remember that although you are not yet initiate of the 1st degree, you are an advanced man, with head centers awakening, and we do see here man partially controlled by the ego, advanced man. Well, maybe sometimes that term advanced man can be applied to the one who has not yet taken the 1st degree, and sometimes it seems to be applied particularly to one who has taken the 1st degree. But I like to think of it as also preceding the 1st degree, wherein the 4 lesser centers and their synthesis, the alta major, are coming into greater activity until they are confirmed in their activity at the 1st degree. All right, so at least 4 of the head centers. Well, I think when we're simply working in this petal, and we have not necessarily yet taken the 1st degree, then maybe 4 of them are more active. The Ajna Center was active at petal 5. It was important for the integrated personality, and so it continues to be important because the personality continues to integrate. And at petal number 4, we had the first stages of really creating that integrated personality, but it was not too integrated with the soul, even though the higher self was sensed. Cancer is a sign of integration. There is focus, there is discrimination, and the Ajna Center is involved with increasing intelligence, which we will find with petal number 6. The idea here, can spiritual discernment be entering? Well, it's the very first of the cities that we find in relation to the lower part of the causal body. But definitely discrimination is active. And the type of discrimination we're talking about is not only mental discrimination in the normal field of experience, but discrimination between the soul and the personality, and that which is of the soul and that which is of the personality. One needs to know that as one is moving towards the first initiation. See, we have to realize that there are different phases of petal unfoldment. When we are focusing within a particular petal, we are doing the organization and vitalizing work, and then coordinating work, and then we may move on to the next petal, and the process that we began continues, partially by our own efforts, as we're not just focused in one area of experience only, but partially by the supportive effort of the solar angel, which is helping to animate what we have prepared. As I've sometimes discussed, the shoemaker and the elves, the old fairy tale. The shoemaker lays out all the parts to the shoes, and when he's asleep, the elves put the shoes together, and he has a fully constructed pair of shoes by the morning. So there is some support by agencies other than ourselves as we are working ahead. What we've already prepared is brought into a higher stage of integration, functionality, expression by the solar angel, and also later by the rod of initiation. And the solar angel does not stop its work either when the rod is applied. So maybe there is some spiritual discernment starting to come in to discover in the early stages of spiritual discernment what is of the soul, what is of the personality. Aspiration here, the Ajna Center giving us a vision of the future and guiding our direction forward towards the soul. Both the solar plexus is still involved. We are still potentially in a mystic phase here when working at the development, the organization and vitalization of Petal 6. But the Ajna Center combines giving that aspiration a greater sense of direction, we might say. So vision and aspiration do go together. I see, and I aspire towards what I see. The Ajna Center represents a kind of battleground for the mental plane, and it has in it the number 4, which represents that battle. It has also 4 colors or areas within it, which represent different types of focus. On the right side we have the orange, is it the yellow and the rose? That's it. And on the left side, from the individual's left, we have the blue and the violet. Interesting, one of our members brought up a mythological point that Venus had 2 lovers. One was desire and one was aspiration. Mars is the solar plexus center, and Mercury, the other lover, was the Ajna Center. At our stage of development, we're interested very much in the Mercury-Venus mind, in the divine Hermes Aphrodite, the divine hermaphrodite, which the soul is, and we're seeking to sublimate the power of Mars and bring out its aspirational and energizing potentials, and not follow the way of low desire. Venus is, in a way, a sun goddess, and it's kind of interesting. The point was brought up that Mars has a more long-term relationship with Venus, but I wonder if that, well, maybe in mythology that is somewhat true, but I think later, there is a triangle, Mercury, Venus, and the Earth, let us say. Or there's the triangle Mercury, Venus, and Mars in relation to the Earth. Mercury will be the mentality, and Venus will be the astral nature. The Earth will be the physical nature. And when we look at a triangle of Mercury, Venus, and Mars in relation to Earth, then Mars will not represent the astral body, but will represent the physical. Venus the astral, and Mercury the mental vehicle. Venus is definitely related to the Sun. It's what is called the little light, in which the greater light stores its what? So let's see. Venus, light stores. Maybe stores is the... No? I think we're going to have to look at it from a wider perspective. Yeah, it's just one reference. Thank goodness for the ability to combine words in this way. Venus is the little sun in which the solar orb stores his lights. And when you think about his lights, you kind of wonder about the passage of the solar angels to Venus from the sun before they necessarily enter and do their work within the earth. Anyway, it's an occult statement, and the idea of the solar angels seems to come forward. It's from The Secret Doctrine, 2nd volume, 27th page. Okay, so interestingly, harmony and discord are the two children of Venus with Mars. That sounds like a very fourth ray type of situation, and the harmony is what we're interested in. It's the higher part of the fourth ray. Mars will always stir up trouble and conflict unless it is well regulated. The Mercury-Venus mine exists. It relates to the 3rd degree. The divine marriage takes place. Well, anyway, we have the alchemical process operating here. The divine marriage taking place in the water, related to the astral plane, related to the 6th petal. We do have a Pisces component to this 6th petal. And Venus has risen from the water. We have to combine mind and emotions. I suppose when we have Mercury-Venus at a relatively low phase, we have what's called Kama Manas. But when we elevate it, we really have something much greater. We have something called Buddhi Manas. And Venus changes from being Kama to Manas, and Mercury changes from being Manas to being Buddhi. So we're interested in the Mercury-Venus mind as it gives us what's called Buddhi Manas. Can we really sense Buddhi Manas here? At the 6th petal, I think it's a little bit early. We're still working on improving Manas and bringing in the realized quality of the soul mind. We're interested in meditating and learning increasingly how to subject the mind to the light of the soul. Through the Ajna Center, we discriminate between soul and personality, and through Virgo, the mental unit, which is fourfold, and the Ajna, which is also fourfold. So discrimination is aided by all of these factors. And there is an interesting positioning in relation to the 4th subplane of the mental plane, where discrimination between soul and personality does occur. I mean, if we're going to direct our forces towards the soul, we have to know what the soul really is, don't we? And we have to know about that mentally. We have to be a student here. So, you know, I think we sacrifice many of the elemental leanings here in this 6th petal. There's parts of ourselves which, you know, gravitate towards elemental life, but Virgo is abstemious and says, I will withhold my attention from such things in order to cultivate that which tends towards soul culture and development. Anyway, the number 4 is a pivotal place. The ajna is associated with 4, with its 4 colors and its 4 parts, and so is the mental unit, and the 4th subplane is involved. It's that pivotal place where we learn to tip towards what is of the soul and not what has been of the fourfold personality. What about the heart and group life here? Well, yes, Virgo is a sign in which more of the second ray is now entering than through any other sign, at least cyclically this is so. And Pisces is a hugely second ray sign and cosmically considered a kind of decanate, a cosmic decanate, related to the second ray. All of these are very powerful second ray signs, of course, including Gemini. They each emphasize the second ray in different ways. But Virgo is a type of energy that is definitely connected with much entry of the second ray at this time. It is instrumental in cultivating the Christ consciousness, the second ray consciousness, within the human personality, largely generically ruled by the third ray. So the heart, yes, there is the conscious attempt to give up desires for the sake of the group. It's not always successful, but that sacrificial, loving attitude is a second ray attitude. So if this was already active in petal number 5 when we were having the aspiration appear after the fall of the king ego, the lower ego as king, after that fall, a higher objective is seen and aspiration enters. So if it was found there in petal number 5, it's found even more so in petal number 6. So we're talking about the chakras here. How much head center is there? Well, there are 4 plus 1 head centers at the first degree. How many are there now? We might say at first there are maybe 4 more active, and then later after the first degree has occurred and one is still focusing in the 6th petal, then all 5 and maybe some tendency towards the 6th head center. Now, where those head centers are and whether they're part of a group of 14 or a group of 21, all of that has still to be clarified, at least in my mind. Oftentimes we do see 3 groups of 7, which make up a kind of 21, which together become a 22, and I think when we are measuring or thinking about the head centers, we can think, or the chakras in general, we can think in those terms. Okay, what is the relationship of the head center to the other chakras? Well, these are master centers. And, kind of interesting, Vulcan comes in here as an esoteric ruler, a veiled esoteric ruler of Virgo. It's veiled by the moon. And Vulcan, from what I can understand, is the planet most associated with these controlling and more willful head centers, the sort of master centers that control the other more normal centers with which they are correlated. As is said in the 7 rules, 14 rules really for applicants to initiation. This is rule number 8. When the disciple nears the portal, the greater 7 must awaken and bring forth response from the lesser 7 upon the double circle. Well, there is definitely a double circle, and one wonders if there's not even a higher group of 7, as it were, above the head altogether. We are now approaching the portal because we prepare for the 7th petal and the first real initiation. Now, the portal, I think, I would say that these rules to not only apply to the first degree, but even more so to the third degree, at least in my view. One of my friends who is quite astute in this said that the 14 rules for applicants take us to the third initiation as far as the individual is concerned, and the 14 rules for groups and for disciples and initiates take us in the group sense towards still higher initiations and seem to begin more at the third degree, although some groups that are approaching the second degree or hovering around the second degree can get a reflection of those higher possibilities and apply the 14 rules, or at least some of them, at the second degree. So the waking up of these centers, these head centers controlled by Vulcan, are these directing centers fit with this petal because we are disciplining ourselves. We are using the Vulcanian will to a significant degree. We are using the Vulcanian will to a significant degree. So Vulcan is an esoteric planet, and we are dealing with esoteric processes which are occurring in the head. I've discussed the question of whether we can use these esoteric planets before the first degree, but I think when a person becomes a true aspirant, well, at least an aspirant towards the first degree, and is undertaking testing on the probationary path towards the first degree, then the esoteric planets, I think, can be used. I think everyone should examine these things in his own life and see whether he is responding to the esoteric planets. I think we can leave for the moment the hierarchical planets out of consideration unless one knows for a fact that one is approaching the third degree or has taken it. But the question of when to apply the esoteric planets really is important. I'll give you an example of my own case. As an Aries type, I could say, well, only Mars applies, but that wouldn't be quite true because I have Mercury in Aries, and so the esoteric ruler of Aries is also in Aries, and definitely so much of what I do and try to cultivate is along the Mercurian line. It's an elevated planet, and I think I'm getting some of the esoteric quality out of Aries, so I look at it in my own sense. If I was to look at my Cancer rising sign and say, okay, is it just the moon? Well, it certainly is the moon, conjuncting to Mars, but is it Neptune? Well, Neptune is opposing Mercury, and the two are definitely involved. The rationalist, as we might refer to Mercury, and the mystic, as we might refer to Neptune, are a kind of interplaying duality in my life. I think both are involved. So I believe the esoteric planets are active in my own life, and I think you should look for that in your life as well and try to define the way in which the esoteric ruler of your sun sign and the esoteric ruler of your rising sign may characterize your life. Okay, the chakric triangle most implicated in relation to this petal. Well, we have various chakras here: the heart, the throat, the ajna, and also 4 head centers. And maybe before long, when the first initiation is taken, 5 head centers. It's so interesting how the first initiation correlates with the 5. I want to just mention that. We're told about, let's just say that the number 5 correlates strongly with the first initiation. Look at the 5th fifth sign, Leo, in or under which the first initiation is often taken. Look at 5 petals being open when the first degree is completed. And these are, let's just say, the Mahachohan and the Brahmic influence is here. If we were to turn to this page, vital references, on the Buddhic plane when flashing forth at initiation, the number 5, signifies the full development of the 5th principle or quality, and that's going to be manas, right? The completed cycle of the ego under the 5 rays of the Mahachohan, and the assimilation of all that is to be learned upon them, and the attainment not only of full self-consciousness, but also of the consciousness of the group wherein a man is found. Not necessarily full consciousness of the group wherein the man is found. It infers the full development of 5 of the egoic petals, so it can't be, of course, the 5th initiation, because the ego is gone by that time, or at least the causal body is gone, leaving 4 to open before the final initiation. And in this case, that final initiation has to be considered the 3rd initiation, because 9 petals are open by the time the 3rd initiation occurs. So we're definitely talking about the first initiation here, and its relationship to the 5 rays of Brahma, the 5 rays supervised by the Mahachohan. I think we see the relationship of the number 5 here. Brahmic influences here. 5 rays are supervised by Brahma, and 5 rays are under the guidance of the Mahachohan. All right, so are we in this petal advanced man, partially controlled by the ego? I think we are almost there. The ego is coming in as a factor of guidance. We're not yet when we're just organizing and how is it said? Organizing and stimulating, or organizing and activating, vitalizing this petal. We're not yet at the 1st degree, but later, as the petal is unfolding, we certainly are at the 1st degree. So maybe we have the waking up of Vulcan at the sun petal, because Vulcan and the sun are one, and then the continuation of the Vulcanian power. The sun petal, I'm calling that the 5th petal. And this is, interestingly, it's a moon petal in a way. The 6th petal is kind of a moon petal, even though it's in the series of 5 petals, which I call sun petals, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But there is an esoteric planet, the moon, which is veiling the synthesizing planets. So, and it's a continuation in petal 6. So the sun petal per se is petal 5. Okay, petal 5. Heart, throat, and the 4 head centers plus the alta. Does this partial control by the ego happen before the 1st degree? I think a little bit. Maybe we can call it influence rather than control. The control is influenced maybe more by devotion than by will, but I think the will must be coming in as Virgo is applied at this 6th petal. There is a kind of control which arises through will. It's a higher type of control than that which arises through devotion and desire. Let's see, we can discipline ourselves, the ego can force certain tendencies. We, the man, have to learn to apply ourselves, relying upon ourselves, as the Buddha said. We apply what capacities we have, and then the ego can also impel and seem to force certain issues and thereby speed the process. We really only have a kind of 25% control at the first degree. The matter in our vehicles, our etheric, astral vehicle, and mental vehicle are only 25% atomic. That's kind of interesting. Would we have in the lower mind atomic matter? Okay, well that has to be thought about. Certainly we have 25% etheric matter in our etheric vehicle at the first degree, and 25% astral matter in the astral vehicle, and this continues until the 100% mark is reached. 100% atomic matter is reached at the fourth degree. So some of this control would have to at least start before we reach the first degree. So when does control begin? Well, okay, as I've said, there is influence, but is there control? And do we have to wait for Vulcan for there to be control? Does Vulcan begin at petal 7 or petal 5? I think, in a way, it begins at petal 5 and then continues on through the other petals. I think we can relate Vulcan to each one of the first 3 initiations. Vulcan and the Sun are one at the first degree, and we are beginning to exercise the spiritual will to bring the sacral center energy towards the throat center. We are using desire is giving place to will. Mars is giving place to Vulcan at the second degree, and Mars and Vulcan are again found. Desire and will are again found at the third degree, and there's a great battle that goes on there to relinquish all the prerogatives of personality, and the spiritual will under Vulcan helps that. Is there Vulcan, Virgo, and training control before the 7th petal? I think so. I think so. And let's just say yes. Would you say that Vulcan comes in control of the physical body? Yes, as we are preparing for the first degree, which has a strongly physical component. And let us realize that Vulcan is also much related to the etheric body and to the work of the Agni Chaitans in the etheric body. Okay, with respect to the Ajna, heart center, and solar plexus center, the solar plexus is not necessarily more active or important here than in petal 5. At least there is a reconsecration of the solar plexus going on in petal 6. A consecration, that's not spelled right, of the solar plexus in petal 6 to higher objectives. So, and it is deliberately directed, which may not have been the case in petal 5. It was active, but not necessarily directed. There is a battle here between the person and the group, we've been told. The person is striving towards becoming a good group member, but still is not quite there, so there's still some personalism. So the person, in this respect, is related to the solar plexus center and the group to the heart center, both of which are being cultivated here. And, of course, the ongoing discrimination and direction of the Ajna center. These are different triangles which we can say are active at this point. Okay, so we have the Ajna, heart center, and solar plexus center. We also have the Ajna, heart center, and throat. This is important for man controlled from the mental plane. We have to keep the throat center here because there is definitely intelligence strongly emerging. What do we mean by man controlled from the mental plane? Let's take a look at that particular combination. Okay, I'm going to go here to page 170 again. Man controlled from the mental plane, the base of spine, heart, and throat. And we have progressed even beyond that. There is some control from the mental plane already with the third petal, which is kind of influencing or indicating an early phase in the Aryan process. But we continue being controlled from the mental plane as the ego influences that mentality. So what do we mean by man controlled from the mental plane? Do we mean the ability to use the mind more than the emotions, or that the mind can control the emotions, or that we are motivated by the mind rather than by the emotions? I think we can mean all of those things. So using the mind but being motivated by emotions and physical instincts could be connected with petal number 3. Controlling the emotions by the mind would come later, when, in order to be an integrated personality, we have to control our emotions through the mind. So Leo begins the process of controlling the emotions through the mind, and Leo has a lot of the fifth ray, and Scorpio, in relation to the eighth petal, finishes it. There is a double emphasis on the mind and Mercury in relation to Scorpio and the eighth petal. In relation to the sixth petal, is this an advanced man? Yes, definitely, and an advanced man who is an aspirant. Already the shift of the egoic lotus to the second subplane may be in process. It doesn't happen like overnight at the first degree. It is a characteristic of advanced man that the egoic lotus focus will be shifting to the second subplane of the egoic, of the higher mental plane. So, so someone, I think, suggested that there's a kind of proportion here of 2/3 in the necessary development to start the shift going. So we can keep that in mind. Maybe 2/3 of the way through the type of organization work that's being done in the petal, perhaps. So man controlled from the mental plane may not be that high, but man using his mind and being controlled from a higher source, from the higher mental plane where the ego is found, that is a higher stage. So what we have here in the sixth petal, we have focused aspiration, more mental control. We're trying to be a disciple, and a disciple has mental control, even though we are still pretty much a probationary disciple, and we are directing our aspiration through the mind, as well as through the astral body. So a mental aspiration is involved here. So we can say that the sixth petal people, those who are working actively in this petal, are more objective about themselves than has been the case in the earlier type of focus. A kind of mental detachment is entering here, which helps the individual correct what must be corrected and fits him for fulfilling the requirements of the first initiation. We are preparing, in a way, for the birth of the Christ, which will come when we are really doing our major focal work in the seventh petal and can have the application of the rod of initiation. Okay, then, number 23. Are there other chakras implicated with the expression of this petal or its development, and the reasons for this implication? So, in general, solar plexus, throat, sacral, base of the spine. Other chakras, okay. Because we've already dealt with the head, the ajna, the throat, the heart. So we still have the solar plexus center. Why? Because we are told that the motive is still somewhat blind and personal, still colored by a desire for a return of the service offered. So this involves, of course, the solar plexus, because if it were entirely the heart center, there would be no desire for return. Also, we do aspire here. We aspire towards contact with the soul, and that is a solar plexus center activity. But maybe we now have some of the higher point of the solar plexus reaching for the heart. We know how there are considered to be 2 points within the solar plexus, one having to do with lesser and lower desire, and the other involving the higher emotions and aspirations to the heart. The solar plexus feels in a way it does not have eyes, we might say. So when we talk about blind emotion and blind belief, the solar plexus is involved in that. It's connected more with the sense of touch than the sense of sight. Yes, we would still have the throat center here because there is still a personal creative phase, and the throat center can also, it has 16 potencies, and it can offer higher potencies than those which are strictly personal. There is here growing intelligence, there is self-criticism, and, as Virgo so often experiences, the sense of unworthiness before the higher power, and then, therefore, the need to correct one's personal nature in light of the nature of this higher power. One of the problems of the third ray is criticism. Well, we're talking about perhaps self-criticism here, but also criticism of others who do not measure up to the expectations that one should measure up to oneself. Which one should measure up to oneself. So we oftentimes project our criticism when we find that we have not lived up to our own expectations. We oftentimes put that on others, not realizing we are doing so. I suppose there's the normal use of the sacral center and the base of the spine center, though I would say some beginning detachment from the sacral center, because we aim for higher objectives and a higher form of creativity, and Virgo gives us this power of abstraction. We could say if these are curtailed too much, the people will lose touch with the earth and with their lower chakras, and denial can enter and non-function of the lower centers. So this can be a problem with mystics, losing touch with that which connects them to the earth. Okay. Would there always be 3 major centers in any stage, in any particular petal development? I think there is always a triangle which stands out as most active. So it seems reasonable. When the solar plexus center, especially its higher part, is activated, it means you are very much a spiritual aspirant. Of course, this aspiration need not die. Master Morya tells us that there must be fiery striving all the way along the path. He reminds us so often, strive fierily. And he's not just talking about the lower stages of development. What about the astral chakras, if any, most associated with this petal? Well, the astral solar plexus and the ajna and the heart. Let's see here. I think we have Well, the heart, self-love and personality is the bad aspect. The good aspect is soul love and group love, and that is coming along, let us say. Okay. The Ajna Center, selfishness and dogmatism, well, in the mystical phase there can be some of that, but mysticism is the good aspect, and solar plexus, heart, and what did I say? Okay. Yes, Ajna for mysticism, astral solar plexus for aspiration and right direction, astral heart, group, soul love, group love, only beginning, and still somewhat selfish. These are the astral chakras. It's rather interesting about the astral chakras that they have sometimes a different ray emphasis, and we can imagine that for the fairly developed individual, it's not only the etheric chakras which are active, but that the astral chakras feed into them and somehow supplement them, perhaps with other rays and with other tendencies, because these astral and mental energies have to work out etherically as well. So there's more to the expression of an etheric chakra than is specifically found in the etheric chakras. They are fed by other rays and tendencies from vortices that are found on the astral and the mental plane, and also from the higher mental plane, where the petals themselves assume the role of chakras. They are not yet chakras, and when the egoic lotus disappears, vortices may replace that which was present before. Okay. The astral head center, the dramatic eye, self-pity or sacrifice. The dedication of the eye, it's mentioned at petal 5 and continues in petal 6. So let's see here. The head, sacrifice and dedication of the eye. Increasingly, this is the case. How much self-pity will there be as the expression of personality is curtailed in favor of the expression of soul? It can be the case. Okay. Right. All right. So, what is the ray or rays most implicated in this petal? And I would say petal rays 6 and 2. Of course, with every sacrifice petal, sacrifice comes in under ray 1 to a degree. It comes in under ray 2. It comes in under ray 4. But perhaps ray 6 and 2, let's see why. Ray 6 for petal 6, it's an interesting correspondence. It's the idealism to give up one's own desires for the sake of the group. So we are idealizing the soul or higher power, and we're seeking to correct the ways of the personality and live a more ideal life. We would say that in petal 6, which naturally would numerically correspond to the 6th ray, there's even more idealism than in petal 5. So you make a sacrifice for your ideals. It's not just a question of being forced into it, as is the case with petal 3. The ideal of altruism is emerging. It's not completely realized, but it does exist. And if in petal 5 we could get the ideal of service, well, here we have an even more idealistic attitude. If Virgo is related to service, which it is, along with Aquarius especially, of course you can serve in all signs, then this is a big service petal, a petal where the concept of service is grasped and one begins, however semi-selfishly, to serve. It doesn't have necessarily the completeness of occultism or study behind it, but we are at least working for others, even if a little selfishly at times. So let's see here. I think we have to go back to page 543 or so. Maybe a little earlier. The attitude of the man as he strives consciously endeavors to give up his own desires for the sake of the group. He consciously endeavors to give up his own desires for the sake of the group. And the idea here, he does, he does serve, that's for sure. His motive is still a somewhat blind one, still colored by the desire for a return of that which he gives, and for love from those he seeks to serve. At least he seeks to serve them. I see that unless I can move to this other, you can only have so many instances of the Petal, so many instances of the Alice Bailey CD-ROM open. So here I have already underlined this. And the blind sacrifice, not quite blind, but still somewhat blind. Okay. Well, at least he sees to an extent. He doesn't see all. We're not really yet, when we're working at organizing this petal, we have not really yet entered the Hall of Wisdom. Once the fifth petal is completely unfolded, then we have entered the Hall of Wisdom. So it is a petal in which at least the theory of service is grasped, even if return is expected. He continues to transmute desire into aspiration, and that tells us something about the relationship between the 2 points in the solar plexus. Ray 6 is also involved in relinquishment, in giving up the lesser for the greater, you know. An ideal is envisioned, and we learn to give up the lesser for the greater. There is some Ray 2 here. It's related to both of these signs, which I have associated with this particular petal. Of course, if we count differently, we will get different signs, but these are two prominent ones. So there is some Ray 2 because group consciousness is valued. And here is an idea that the Pharisee says, look at me, pray. You know, there's a lot of ego in this lower ego. Look at me, give charity. Let's see, get my praise, or look at me, give to charity, and look at me, offer praise. Maybe the word should be offer. Look at me offering praise and praise me. But you see, it's still a very self-centered motive. Let's just say that Ray 6 people are trying to be rid of this particular motive. They sense the higher aspiration, and this is especially, I would say, especially so of Ray 2 people, who have a ray which is conducive to selflessness. Okay, so Ray 2 and Ray 6. Now, what about the other rays implicated in the development of this petal? And I've listed really all the other ones, it seems, and of course that's really close to the truth. Not every ray will be equally important in every petal, But I'm sure there are ways, since we're immersed in this ocean of energies, that we can find the presence of every ray, at least in some kinds of activities related to every petal. Well, what about training for the seventh ray? Training on the physical plane suggests ray 7, which is closely related to Virgo traits. We've done some analysis here, and when the ray 7 traits and Virgo traits are correlated, they come out to have a correlation far, far greater than chance. So we're, building good spiritual habits here. We're attempting to build in the new patterns. This is, as I say, more than the really good man who is conventional still, Another step here is on its way. Are we working in different petals at the same time? Yes, that's been my thesis here. I think working in at least 2 petals at the same time. Usually working in at least 2 petals at the same time. So anything else we can say about that ray 7? If we go back here a bit, maybe we can see. Well, disciplining, yes. The relation to the group is also ray 7, training and correcting and getting things into good form, house cleaning, discarding the rubbish, all of that can be connected with ray 7. So, let's just say that maybe not just the mystic, but the practical mystic can begin to develop later in the petal physical plane. Let's see, PTL process. PT process, okay, PTL process. I think I'll put that in. It's a good abbreviation, PTLP, and we'll call it petal process. Okay. Okay, now, so that's ray 7, and I think, the group values are associated also with ray 7. I think I'll sort of put this in here, that group values associated with ray 7. In other words, whatever your ray chart is, if you identify the petal area in which you are focused or working, you should learn how to apply the rays you have to those developments. Okay, ray 1, well, it's a sacrifice petal, and so he is, in a sense, stopping himself. Ray 1, Saturn, etc., says no. It can block elemental tendencies, and there are so many of them which at first are necessary to block, later to transmute. So he's stopping himself, he's giving up old tendencies. Vulcan is, interestingly, esoteric and higher, esoteric ruler, veiled esoteric ruler of Virgo, veiled by the moon. It is a ray 1 planet, and the work of Vulcan precedes the first initiation. Okay. Is a ray 1 planet. Okay. Okay, let's see if I get this correct. And the work of this planet precedes the first initiation, we have seen that in page 7071 of Esoteric Astrology, where the different planets are associated with the various initiations. Pluto also has ray 1 and is preceding the first initiation, related to Pisces here. So ray 1 is part of the eliminative process to which the individual concentrating on the 6 petals subjects himself. Ray 1 is forcing him, really, to give up unfit tendencies, or let's see, tendencies unfit for the birth of the Christ within the heart. Okay, well, birth of the Christ, right. Okay, so into the psyche of such an individual can come the realization, I know I am selfish, but I will not be selfish. Here is Ray 1 being applied. And Ray 1 also is important for bringing to an end one's experience on the Mutable Cross, which can be associated either way with Virgo leading to the birth of the Christ, or with Pisces leading to a detachment from from that which you practiced before. So I think Ray 1 has a real place here, as with all sacrifice petals. Ray 3, well, before the first initiation, Ray 3 is very important as the synthesizing ray of Brahma. We saw how the first initiation brings together the 5 rays of Brahma, and how important number 5 is, which is a Brahmic number. So, in a way, this is a ray of synthesis. I suppose we could say, not a ray of synthesis, a petal of synthesis. Every one of the third petals of a tear synthesize somewhat that which has been accomplished or pursued in that tear. So we have an intelligent person here, a creative person, an aspirant, and the personality is so frequently found on Ray 3 before the first initiation. It's kind of a method of gathering together and integrating the personality in preparation for its entry onto the fixed cross. The Mutable Cross is a third ray cross, and now, in a way, in Petal 6, we are summarizing our experience on the Mutable Cross. The Mutable Cross is ending. We serve those on the Mutable Cross, but we do not any longer want what the personal nature in ourselves needs, nor do we want what those we serve need. We want, we desire, we aspire to something higher as we are serving on the Mutable Cross. Okay, so Ray 3 is important synthetic gathering ray before the first initiation. So interesting that, frequently the personality will be found on the third ray, even the mind on the seventh ray, DK tells us, and the brain on the seventh ray too, before the first initiation. I don't suppose it's the case that the personality will be on the third ray if there is a third ray soul. That combination of the same personality ray and soul ray, I think, is relatively rare. We don't know how rare it is. DK simply discussed similarity of rays when dealing with the techniques of integration for the first ray soul, and said the first ray soul could have a first ray personality. Well, and that is especially once the integration has really proceeded and he's gained sufficient love to balance a double first ray. Well, if it is so for the first ray, I don't see why it cannot be so for other rays, but the time at which this would occur and the frequency with which it might occur have not been discussed in the books. Well, what about Ray 4? Between the group needs and his own desires, there is a conflict between the solar plexus center and the heart center. We could say that between these there are counterpoles. Okay. Anything else about Ray 4? Well, it's law of sacrifice. A law of sacrifice is under the fourth ray. Under the fourth ray. And this is a sacrifice petal, sacred planet, sacrifice petal. So this law of the soul will apply, and more consciously than in the past in relation to petal 3. Okay, so the law of sacrifice being torn between group needs and his own needs, between solar plexus and heart. I think there's quite a bit of conflict associated with this petal, just as there certainly was for petal number 5, maybe even in a way more so and more dramatically. What about the fifth ray? Well, there's the need to discriminate, especially between soul and personality and their respective requirements. Yes. So we continue to attempt to focus in the mind on our way. I guess it depends on the rays to a degree, but the mind is certainly being cultivated under Virgo. We have seen how mental a sign it can be in the concrete sense at first. Later, other potentials begin to come through it. So I think we've covered really all the rays. We may have begun with rays 6 and 2, but, ray 7 for the training and ray 1 for the application of will as opposed to desire, and ray 3 for the Brahmic synthesis that's occurring on the Mutable Cross, and ray 4 for the struggles, and ray 5 for discriminating between the way of the soul and the way of the personality. Now let us go on to number 27. And we're talking about the colors of the petals and their meaning. We have rose, orange, yellow, and indigo. And here we have them: rose, orange, yellow, and indigo. And I wonder if we should not have, rose, orange, yellow, if we should not have started the rose at this side. And also, here we have started it. No, I think that's correct. It is correct as it is. Yeah, it is correct as it is, because we are not yet into the sacrifice petals, where that, at least the way the Egoic Lotus is drawn, that strange kind of reversal seems to occur. Well, rose is here, the ray representing the ray 6 of idealism, the idealism of service, and trying to raise one's motives, lifting towards the heart. The heart is in sight. To say, the quality of desire continues to become less red, less primal, less associated with lower satisfactions. So we are desiring here to be more selfless. It's still quite a bit of theory for us, still a lot of theory, but some success is occurring. Of course, by the time this petal is completely unfolded, there is really a blow against selfishness. But that's at the second initiation, and that's after a lot of future work, I would say. Orange is here, of course, as in all of them. This is a petal of discrimination, and we begin to, well, let's just say clearly differentiate, I would say, clearly differentiate concerning soul motive and personal motive. So there's more interior discrimination regarding one's own motives, and soul is increasingly sensed. There's more caution and discrimination in training oneself. What is my motive? Well, you sort of the Jesuit approach. I think they have a lot of internal disciplines. Even, the practice of the presence of God sounds like a very Jesuit pursuit. They don't let them get away with anything, and they are a very mental order. So I think that there's a lot of work done in this petal by the monastic types. What about yellow? Well, there is a struggle here. A struggle because of Ray 4, but also the attempt to begin harmonizing soul motives with personal motives. Yellow is synthetic, and it's interesting, it's found around the head, according to Leadbeater's diagrams and illustrations, around the head of the highly mental type. So it's a mental and Buddhic color. It's both. Okay, right. Okay, put this in here. Both a mental and Buddhic color. It is, interestingly enough, the color given by Master DK for Virgo. At least he used that color. Some of my colleagues have located the colors he used among the, I think, the Golden Dawn colors. But anyway, he, for the astrological signs, but he chose to use yellow for Virgo. Yellow relates to the fourth subplane, and there's a lot of work being done here. It's the plane of discrimination between soul and personality. Plane of discrimination between soul, or let's say personality and soul. Yellow is sacrifice. Yellow relates these two worlds finally. Both yellow and the orange should be used, and we are learning about soul mind and concrete mind, the fusion of. The beginning of the fusion of soul mind and concrete mind. The third petal is synthetic for the tier. The third tier, the sacrifice tier, in yellow represents mental synthesis and is related to the principle of synthesis, first principle of synthesis, which is buddhi. So yellow is very important here. Can the mind, which is normally orange, the lower concrete mind, begin to be related to the Buddhic quality of the soul, which is yellow? I mean, the soul is not pure buddhi, but it carries buddhi. It's interesting how yellow can stand for a number of phases of the mind. At least certainly a high, very high state of the transcendental mind, which we call buddhi, and also aspects of the abstract mind, and perhaps, as it is related to Ray 5, even to the concrete mind. Yellow is related to Ray 3, monadically, Ray 4 in the soul sense, and Ray 5 in the more personal sense. So can the mind begin to have soul light transferred to it here? I would say so. And yellow represents a mediated Buddhic quality into the mind. So in terms of rays, Ray 2 is Buddhic, Virgo, Ray 2, and yellow is Buddhic as well. Yellow is a bridging color, and when we think about, I don't know what the third ray may have been in the previous solar system. Did those who came across from the previous solar system to our present solar system travel on a bridge of yellow? Sometimes we find yellow associated with the third ray and sometimes green. And is this kind of a solar systemic bias? Anyway, with yellow we come under the harmonizing of the mind. Virgo is called the blended dual light. And we wonder what two colors can be associated with this blended dual light. If this starts at the orange, Leo, then certainly there is more soul light coming in. Virgo is a sign which nurtures the light. So yellow is important. Yellow and orange, we might say, are blending. Maybe they are the two lights which we can call the blended dual light. So we're dealing with the second tier, and we have with indigo a second ray color. Now, here again we see the yellow, the devotion of rose, the discrimination of orange, and then indigo, which does show up in each one of the sacrifice petals, showing us that they are also synthetic petals. So indigo is love, wisdom. It is the summation, in a way, of the love petals. And we say, in this case, that as a personality, I am trying to love. Am I, however, yet the soul? Not yet, but I am being influenced by the higher of the pairs of opposites, which I have begun to come into contact with once I began working in the petal 4 area. I aspire to love in this petal. It's not the same thing as I love spontaneously because I am a soul. Well, this is this indigo in the final, in the sixth petal, is a setup for the second ray, which comes to us through the Christ. We remember Virgo, the powerful second ray delivery, its connection with the birth of the Christ, and thus I would say with indigo. The first 6 petals, I'm saying here, are the strictly human stage in the human kingdom. And now we're in the antechamber to, the lead up to kingdom number 5, the kingdom of souls. And I suppose its color is very much indigo. It's a deep, deep second ray color. It has some ray 5 associations also. There's some heart energy here, definitely, as we attempt to give up our own desires for the sake of the group. So we're synthesizing with this petal the entire second tier, and both the first and the second tier are opening as work is done in the third tier. We're synthesizing the personal nature so it is prepared for the first stage of conscious soul infusion at the first degree. Pisces and Virgo, they're both second ray signs, and we can connect them with the second ray color indigo. The whole mutable cross, in a way, is being synthesized here. We could say that in a way, the green is being synthesized by the blue. Social relations are synthesized so that right human relations are emerging, and the sixth petal type considers this very important, even if he doesn't always succeed. So what have I learned? What have we learned about this second tier? Well, I would say there's certainly some control of the astral body and the intelligent participation in world affairs. Now, soon we're going to begin participating intelligently in eternal internal affairs related to the soul. Are there additional colors involved in this petals process? Well, we have talked about so far, well, I guess, the colors given to us are actually the indigo, yellow, orange, and rose, or in the opposite direction. I guess while there are no other colors here, we can think of the violet of the seventh ray and the green of the third ray. They're all involved, and whatever rays are involved, they bring in their colors, but they are going to be subsidiary colors to those which are given and which relate specifically to the development of this particular petal. Okay. Are there rays implicated on the basis of color? Well, rose, ray 6, the mystical attitude. Orange, ray 5, discriminating between the self and the not self, the personality and the soul. Yellow, ray 4, for, the struggle in this petal to release oneself from selfishness, and also the ability finally to harmonize soul intentions and personal intentions. And indigo, somehow always the synthetic ray and always showing up in the sacrifice petals of any tier. And, to a lesser extent, we could bring in violet for ray 7 and red for ray 1 and green for ray 3, but then only to a lesser extent. Now, the major sign, beginning with Aries in the counterclockwise order, and you've seen how we've done this. Here is, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and we are at Virgo. That's one way to do it. And that is what we might call counterclockwise counting. So we are, with Virgo, we're just peeling off the excesses of what is not needed, let us say, within the kingdom of God. We are disciplining ourselves and we might say restraining ourselves. Now notice the word training in restraining. Okay. All right, I think that's kind of interesting. There is a sharpening of the mind under Mercury and Virgo, and the third ray and fifth ray. Mental acuity is coming, purification is definitely coming, throwing off what we don't need. We're working on oneself, working, let's just say, working on our instrument. And it's very, very hard work, as Virgo is accustomed to. We're applying service with increasing selflessness, but not entirely selfless. We're experiencing movement, the gestation period of the impending birth of the Christ within the heart. So we are, in a way, preparing the Christ to show himself on the physical plane. Because, Virgo is a sign of tangibility, making things tangible. All right, there's quite a bit here related to Scorpio. Well, if we begin numbering in a different manner, let's see which manner we'd have to number. So, let's see. So, if we begin numbering at Aries, but we go in the clockwise direction, what do we reach? We have Aries, Pisces, Aquarius for petal 3, Capricorn petal 4, Sagittarius petal 5, and Scorpio for petal 6. So, in a sense, we're in that interesting combination of Scorpio and Virgo, and the 8th petal and the 6th petal are definitely related. The conventionally Scorpio petal, numbering in the normal counterclockwise manner, is related to Virgo, and now we have another relationship here where we have Scorpio showing up in the Virgo petal. Before the first initiation, there is a struggle. involving Vulcan and Pluto is not only Pisces. Pluto is definitely related to Scorpio. So Scorpio will help us separate ourselves from the mutable cross here. The tests on the probationary path are applied by Scorpio before the first degree. You are tested before the first degree, but some of that testing may be in relation to Petal 7. Well, we will see. What about putting to death a number of the tendencies which must go before there can be initiation? We are dying to certain physical attachment. This is very scorpionic. It involves the sacral center and the elevation of energy to the throat center. Hopefully it does not involve, hopefully this will not involve the cruel suppression of sex. DK has talked about this and its irrational nature. But anyway, at this level you are facing the first level of the Hydra, that is before the first degree, sex, money, and comfort. Head number 1, number 2, and number 3, I guess we could look at them in that way, or maybe sex, comfort, and money. But I suppose sex is related to the third aspect particularly. But so is money. Anyway, they are all third aspect tendencies, and I don't know if we can connect them with the first 3 petals per se. But anyway, before the first initiation, we're facing these, and Scorpio helps us do that. In Scorpio, the mind is released into full functioning activity, and this takes place in 2 stages. So Mercury is definitely involved here with Scorpio, just as it is with Virgo being the ruling planet in Virgo and the exalted planet in Virgo. So these are DK's words from Esoteric Astrology with page 179 and 180 featured. Stage 1, where intellect becomes dominant and powerful and controls eventually the emotional nature. And this is needed for the first initiation, but is a warm-up for Petal 8. Because definitely the work in Petal 8 is going to help us take that second initiation. There's stage 2, where the intellect is illumined by the light of the soul. And this light coming in is a warm-up for the work being done in Petal 9. So very interestingly, in the stages in the stages of meditation, Scorpio is associated with illumination. So Scorpio also fits with relinquishments. So far, we have here before Virgo and Pisces, and now we have Scorpio associated by counting in the clockwise direction and beginning with Aries. Now, if we start in the clockwise direction and we begin work counting with Pisces, which is legitimate to do, then Libra comes up. And I think you can see how that will work. This will be Pisces Petal 1, Aquarius Petal 2, Capricorn Petal 3, Sagittarius Petal 4, Scorpio Petal 5, Libra Petal 6. So here Libra fits with the giving up of desires for the sake of the group, expecting reciprocity. If the Libran gives love, at least at a certain stage, it is a great sign of reciprocity. There's a certain initial halfwayness in Libra. Interesting that Master M, who is so associated with Aries, despises halfwayness. He'd rather have you as a full-fledged enemy than as a, what does he call it, kind of a worm that is crawling on the battlefield beneath all the fray. So the balancing of forces is Libra before stepping onto the fixed cross. There's a lot of third ray coming in through Libra. It relates to the personality of the that is frequently on the third ray before the first initiation. We're still making the decision about whether we are purifying for ourselves or for others. Libra, the sign of decision. And Libra rules the path we are treading. In this case, the path to initiation. Well, okay, I think this is the time then. I've been breaking this up into sort of 2-hour segments. Other ones have been very long, I know. Beginning, let's call this the end of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary 44. And this has been the synthesis for Petal 6, number 2. And we'll beginning of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary number 45, synthesis for Petal 6 continues. Synthesis for Petal 6, and this should read part 2, I think. Let me just check this. And this other one should be part 3. I hope I haven't lost a part here. Just have to check. Okay, well, no, this was part 2. So, indeed, that was part 2. For Petal Synthesis, this was part 3. So we're ending part 3, and we're ready to start part 4. I was one behind. I know that the text from which we are working could appear just a little more organized and neat, but remember that it is okay, this is number 43, Petal 6, part 3, and this is going to be beginning of part 4. Goodness. So here I think we finally have it. It's we're ending number 44, and it's part 3 that we're ending, and it's about 2 hours and 2 minutes, and our work will be to continue at number 33. We still have another 12 pages of this document to go, so I'm sure we'll still have another 3 or 4 hours of programming. Anyway, friends, we're making our way through Petal number 6 in pieces. I suppose it's fitting with the Virgo type of association with that petal, which can certainly analyze and take things apart. We'll move on shortly to program number 45, which will be part 4. Okay. See you soon. Bye-bye.